All right. Good morning, Brady.
Morning, Eric. How you doing?
Good man. Good man. Thanks for joining me here this morning. We've got something we've been working on for quite some time, and we are really close to the finish line here. We're getting ready to launch this product for the rest of the world to be a part of. So, kind of proud to announce that. Our brand new string, which is going to be called Recurve Plus. Very excited about this project. Something, like I said, we've been working on for several years, and we're here. And we've kind of brought this thing to the goal line. So this is pretty exciting. Tell us a little bit about this project and what this has meant for you.
It's really awesome that this is finally coming to be. I feel like it's a project that when you approached me on, I was like, new string, huh? From the ground up, you had some ideas. I'm like, how ground up can you get on a recurve string? You know, and you told me some of your ideas, and we started working together, and it's like, wow, like we actually can do this. And it's a project that, you know, I think we talked about 3 years ago and really started developing shooting 2 years ago. And we've been extremely patient with this. You know, it hasn't been something like, hey, you know, I build strings, I want to put your name on it, let's go. And no, it's been like, hey, like I want to build something with you, and let's truly go and make a new recurve string, and that's what this Recurve Plus is. We were able to take the strings that I liked, and I knew that recurves liked, why they worked, you know, the 8125, the fast flights, the kind of that soft string that everyone likes and actually performs really well, but has a lot of things that the recurves don't care about. But on the compound side, you're just like, oh, you know, this thing moves a 1/4 inch a day, like that's cool with you. I don't get that. And we're able to make a string blend, like an actual patented string blend, which is the first of its kind, that does everything that the recurve wants on feels and accuracy, but doesn't move. And I mean, it's material, it's end loops, it's a new system that we're going to talk about on the manufacturing, and that had to be developed that was different than I believe what anyone's doing. And like you're one of the premier string experts, right? And I remember there was a lot of times when you and I were talking, and you're just like, yeah, I'll build it, but it doesn't make sense.
No, that's a good point. That brings me back to, I remember our first conversation where I said, hey, you know, gas is doing great. We're really growing leaps and bounds. I'd love to work with you. Let us build you a string. You know, what can we do? And you know, you said, hey, you know, this is not just, you know, let's slap a name on a string and everything else. Well, in my ignorance, that's exactly what I wanted to do. You know, I want to be like, hey, let's build a string, let's collaborate, let's do this. And you're kind of like, hold on. And one of the things that was really interesting for me is the difference between, you know, what the need is of a recurve archer when it comes to strings versus everything that I've known in my 30 plus years of building strings for compounds. It's, you know, everything that I pretty much knew I had to just throw out, because it was the learning curve on this was completely different. The hardest thing for me to really put my mind around is that there was processes that existed and materials and ways to build a string that in my mind could build a superior string to something that was, say, handmade. And when I say handmade, I'm not just saying like handmade craftsman or whatever, but I mean literally somebody's just taking material and they're going around, they're using their jig at home, they're hand making a string, you know, with a serving bobbin, as opposed to, you know, some of the pretty cool machines that we have that can build these things, and really all that stems back to is feel, and that was the thing that I guess, like I said, the most educational for me, or it shocked me the most, but it really comes down to a feel thing, not so much the performance that you can achieve by building strings, you know, under all this the tension and stuff like that, like you would for a compound.
Yeah, and you know, I think, you know, as we dive into this, like we truly like, all right, the first thing we did is like, all right, what type of material do we want? And it's like, all right, we dissected all the materials, not only that I personally liked, but one thing that I really want to say about this string is this string isn't me personally what I want. Like, I've listened to shooters on strings and why they like materials and like they have my whole entire career. And I kind of took everyone's feedback that I've ever gotten on strings and then how I feel and how I shoot and what I'm getting for feedback and try to put all that information into a recurve string that's not only best for me trying to like go win medals, but is going to give feedback and feel and shootability and accuracy to the whole entire market. And I think that that's what we're able to do. And as we go in this, like, you know, we have a patented string material that's never been done before. With the process, we did end loops differently, and we'll get into that. But I mean, even as far as I remember, it's like, all right, hey, how much tension are we building the string under? All right, send me 5 sets of strings at this tension. And I remember it's like, well, what is the idea behind that? It's like, all right, like we're still trying to create like that hand feel, right? And we're going to talk about feeling a lot because like feeling is so important, but generally on a recurve, the quieter you can get it and the less limb flutter and the less like limb slap or loudness that you hear in the tips and stuff, like it's going to be more accurate. You're going to have less vibration going down the limbs and into the riser, but your limbs are also going to last longer. And we were able to achieve, I pretty much think like anything that I wanted in a recurve string or I wanted to make better, we achieved with this. There was nothing like that I compromised on. And it's why it's taken this long to build. But at the same time, like I think that we hit it out of the ballpark.
Yeah, I don't think we left anything on the table. I mean, we addressed everything, you know, right down to the absolute anatomy of the perfect recurve string, right? Okay, so the serving, you know, that's at the limb tips, you know, the end servings and how that's constructed, you know, versus how it, you know, different ways that we could construct that, you know, and then obviously, you know, right back to the center serving, you know, tried and true halo comes off the fingers good and making sure that there's, you know, precision knock fit for that. It was kind of a ground up thing. And, you know, we started, like you said, we started with the different materials that were already existing. And then from my end, I know that there's other materials that weren't necessarily adopted, and I was trying to figure out why. There's materials that have better properties on paper than what we're currently using today. Why aren't we using those? And as we got into this, I realized, you know, that answer became clear to me, and it all, you know, it all came back to feel. And that's really, like I said, this whole thing has been ground up. And we really didn't leave anything on the table. So one of the things we want to do is we want to make this very easy for people to get their hands on. So we're making a standard option, which will be available in a variety of a few different lengths kind of for your bow. And then we're going to do custom option that we can do, you know, pretty much everything as far as customization goes. One of the things that we were doing with this is we wanted to have 3 different basically categories: speed, performance, and stability. And that was down to the strand counts that we were using. So slightly less on the strand count, a little bit more speed, you know, somewhere in the middle were performance, and then kind of stability. So walk us through that as far as, you know, what archers might want the speed and the performance and the stability. And I know you've always been on the heavier side, you know, with a little bit more poundage and stuff, but give me a little bit of info on that.
As a general thumb, and talking to someone, like this material is a little bit smaller than say an 8125, and so when we decided, instead of just kind of doing strand counts, and people are like, well, 22 strand sounds really thick when I always shoot 20. You know, we decided to go with, like, you know, stability, which is where I sit. It's the basic, you know, strand count for a 14 center serving to fight a biter number 1 knock. And that's really like a lot of guys, a lot of heavier poundage bows shoot that. And then you step down into that middle strand count, and it's where a lot of, you know, lighter pound bows, a little bit shorter draw lengths, and then even the speed one, you know, shooting field or trying to get some different things. Like, we just wanted to give the options that everyone builds themselves. You know, we wanted to do a manufacturing and the strand counts and the sizes that the general population builds themselves as well. Not one strand count is better than the other. They all may tune a little bit different, but you have that option to just go and get that right away.
So your speed is going to be basically the equivalent of 8125 or fast flight in like 16 strands.
Yeah.
Your performance is going to be almost where that staple was, which 8125 18 strands was kind of like the set standard, I think, that everybody, you know, basically they based the strings on. And then 20 strands, I know there was a few archers running like yourself. Some other guys that were running, you know, slightly higher poundages and everything else might run up as much as 20 strands, which will be 22 strands in Recurve Plus, and that's you know, that's where the stability comes in, and I think that you know, you brought up the difference. The material blend that we have here, this actually is this is a patented material blend. It blends multiple grades of dynemas, which are high modulus polyethylenes, together. So like an SK75 and an SK99 dynema blended together. That's basically what's inside of this patent that we have. And you're right, so the strand counts hit slightly differently. They're basically like 2 strands off from where it was with previous. So as to not avoid any confusion on, you know, saying, well, I normally get this strand count, we kind of did the equation already as far as what it will equal out to. And we'll have some charts on that'll be you know, published, and people will be able to see that information. But that kind of gives us the different, you know, series between the speed, performance, and stability.
Like you said, the string is patented and it is a blend. The reason that we went with this blend was we knew from shooting different strings what was the most accurate, what people preferred, but also the complaints. We blended these dynemas to get the softest, most accurate string that the market likes, but has no creep. And that's where everything has been missing, is you either get a soft string that moves a bunch on you, or you go with, you know, something that was like an 8190 or something like that had no creep in it, was a little bit harsher, and then, you know, because it had no creep, it was more rigid. Your limbs moved more, you fluttered more. Like, some people even different string materials, you know, even affect your limbs differently. And so we were able to get this accurately soft feeling string that the market likes, that doesn't move once it gets set. And that's the beauty of this material, and why it is kind of a first of its kind for the recurves, is it's the best of all worlds.
And I think that was one of the biggest challenges that we had with this. Was it was kind of, they're very contradictory. It was like, all right, we want something that's gonna give, but we also want something that's not gonna move. Like, well, wait, how do we? Those are two different things. You just said that it doesn't make sense. So that was the challenge. So, you know, and that's why we kind of went back to the material. So rather than just taking stuff that we were currently using, it's like, all right, what can we do? Where can we, you know, bring in the elasticity that we need, but still keep the softness that we're looking for on that side, but also make something that's not going to be, you're not going to be constantly adjusting and having to add twist to, and something that's going to be elongating. So that was, again, one of the unique challenges, but one of the things that I think is really cool is that, you know, before you've not been able to have both, and now I think we've created a product where that exists, and that's pretty exciting. So, you know, going with this, so we've had this process that we've used, you know, for forever, since we've started, and we call it the total tensioning system. We call it TTS, And when we got into this, we realized, okay, so there's a lot of cool things about this that we can translate over, but we have to build these a little bit different. So we came up and we call it the RTS. So it's the recurve tensioning system, because it's very, very specific and built around that. So creating the end servings that still have flexibility and they're very pliable, but they're not so loose that, they're still serve tight, So we need to be able to serve them tight on our end, but still create so that there's, you're not getting the limb slap and some of the things that you're seeing there. And I know that those are some interesting things of trying to figure that out. And then the loops themselves. One of the things you'll notice on these strings, the first thing that people notice is the loops are very different. We've used, not your typical 3-ply or braided or twisted serving that you'd normally run on your loops. It's actually a flat material that we're running there, and I think it's super, super cool. We're calling those, our SenseTek Suppression Loops. And what that does is it does create a softer shot, and there's actually suppression that's happening within those limb tips. And that's something that, I had gotten, this goes way back to our beginning. I think I'd had a string that you were using in competition that you had gave me, and like one end of it wasn't even served at all. And you're like, I put it on there and this works, and I get less, slap, it's softer, and that kind of, again, it's very eye-opening, and we tried to duplicate that. With somebody like you and other top archers taking those and you being able to feel the difference, I think that says something in itself. We have folks here that shoot recurves. We encourage all of our staff to get involved in some kind of archery, and some of them are they're just shooting some recurve bows and they're having a blast with it. But they could feel the difference just in shooting like a hunting style recurve or whatever, and they would shoot and they'd have the what they'd see with the strings that we were running before, and then putting one of these strings on there and shooting, and it was a very, very noticeable difference, even for I would say very, very amateur, low level archer who's not necessarily in tune with that stuff. So I think that's it's definitely a very, very cool feature of these strings.
Yeah, and when we went through RTS here, we had to build these strings at a different tension than I think that manufacturing has ever tried to build a string at, to get the accuracy out of the strings that I wanted. And with the end loops, hand building strings, I knew there were some things when I hand built a string that I did for a reason. Like on the bottom loop, I always just used a string material for the serving on the bottom loop, and it made it softer, and those strings always, I felt, shot better with softer loops. But when I hand built a string, like I couldn't get both ends soft and get everything soft and get that string to stay, so like I wasn't able to build a string like that to truly try it. And when we started working together, it's like, hey, you know what? I've never tried this before, but in my head, this is the next steps to where I feel like a string will shoot better and go. And I want these tips completely soft. Like I want them served so the string is protected, so our limb tips are protected, but I want them to feel like there's not really anything there. And I want to see if this makes a more accurate string. And we actually went through a bunch of different end loops, a bunch of different designs. And we ended up having, it's a kind of a two-piece end loop, not necessarily two different pieces, but two different servings. It looks like two different pieces, and that ended up being the best feeling, the best sounding, and the more accurate I felt that I could get on a string. And I felt like that it was one of the harder parts of the string is figuring out the end loops. To do what I felt they wanted, and I can't tell you why I think a softer end loop feels better or shoots better. I do know that the marks on the limb tips are less. Even just shooting, like the stiffer and harder the end loop is, just over time, the more of a mark you get on your limb tips. I've been shooting these end loops now all this season, kind of. The marks on my limbs, I have a lot less wear on my limb from the actual string. You know, you could look at the scores and the consistency and everything with this. Like, it took a long time and it was hard to build. You had to completely change your system, but we created an end serving and end loops that are more accurate.
You mentioned two-piece, and that's really what this is. It is a two-part, you know. So a lot of times in the past, we'd have one material that you'd serve your loops and your end servings in, and these are actually two different materials. And there's a clear stop. Like when you get these strings, you'll be able to see. You can take your end loops and you can actually bend those over, and you'll see that there's a little bit of string material that you'll see in between that and where your end serving starts. And again, that's all by design. You know, we want a clear. We don't want that to come over top of that and to create extra rigidity or to create a bump or whatever. Getting that as flat as possible so there's really no transition was part of the key. And again, you know, for every recurve string I've ever seen, you know, made forever, you know, you always have that. You know, you have the end loops come around and you serve over top of it and you just serve down. I mean, it's just part of it. You know, no different than you build a compound string. But in realizing, you know, just even the audible difference that you can see, you know, in hearing the difference and that lack of slap that you have there when that whole system stays soft up there, as opposed to, you know, your traditional style that you're used to seeing. It all kind of plays into it. Like I said, this is a total system, a totally engineered string. You know, from the material to why the loops are the way they are to why the end servings are the way they are, and everything in between. So,
and that's going to be one thing with this string that is also right now very different than anyone else. We have no dyes or coloring in this string.
Right.
For everyone out there that wants colors, I'm sorry, but when one of the things on this string, every string that you ordered was going to be the same. From string to string to string, I wanted it to be exactly the same, exact knock fits, everything being exactly where we wanted it to be on the competition side, on the accuracy side, on the consistency side, from string to string to string. When you get colors involved into the mix and dyes, that changes the string. Even ever so slightly, it changes the makeup from blue to black to a yellow to a green to anything. The dyes are slightly different. They could be applied to the string differently. It changes the string just a little bit. So this string is raw. It is uncolored. It is the natural color of the string. That's going to be more accurate and more consistent from string to string to string that you get on these. And that's the reason why we only have this one color. And I wanted to point that out, is it is strictly accuracy and consistency based. And this is a product that everyone could put on their bow and everyone will like. You're going to be able to feel the difference. But at the end of the day, this is a high performance string that will make you shoot better. And that, you know, the top guys that put this on there are going to go and win with this string. And we built a performance piece. And in building that performance piece, like, not having dyes in the string was really important to make sure that every single string is exactly the same.
absolutely. No, and that's those are great points, and that's just like you said. I mean, you covered it. There's a little bit of, you know, you add dye, and with that comes the wax and the slightly, you know, green's a little bit different than blue. Blue's a little bit different than red. We get this batch of red, and it might be just slightly. And that's, you know, the folks at BCY do an amazing job of producing, you know, material. It's just the slight differences that go through in manufacturing. And, you know, this way here, we cut out a variable. And that's really what we're doing. We wanted to control every part of the process that we could control with this. And that was something we could control. We could say, you know, listen, no dyes. That inherently, it is going to make the material itself softer. It's going to make it more consistent. You get a string a year from now, it's going to be the same as the one you got today. And that is, it's just kind of goes along with what we're trying to accomplish. It's pretty exciting stuff. And I'll say this, and I'm probably getting a little bit down in the rabbit hole, but, you know, as a guy who, I've worked in archery and manufacturing and, a variety of different roles throughout the industry, over my career, in addition to having been a former, professional archer. And I've achieved some success on that. But, and I've said this before from my point of view, the most satisfaction I can get in archery is watching people perform at the highest level with products that we've been able to design, produce, to do all that. There's no prouder moment for me than seeing you or, your wife Toya or Mikey Schlosser or Kyle or Paige or any of the great archers that we have that we work with, competing at that highest level, winning great things. And I'm super excited about this product because, we worked on this together. I've already seen your success with this. I haven't been able to necessarily, advertise that success yet because we've been kind of keeping that, on the fact that it's gas. But this is something that other people are going to be able to, achieve some of that success with and do some stuff. And I think that's, it's one thing to be able to go out there and shoot products. It's another one when you design and develop something that can help make other people better archers. And I think that's kind of the pinnacle. That's the coolest of the cool for me. Yeah. No, this is great. This has been an amazing project. I've really enjoyed working with you on this. I'm excited that we're finally here and ready to put this in everybody's hands. I'm excited to see, what you continue to do with this going forward. I know we've been an important part of your journey these last few years, and we've got 2024 is a big year for a lot of people that do what you do. Very, very excited to get this in the hands of a lot of those folks, guys and gals, and kick this project off.
Yeah, it's been a long, patient project, and I'm excited to finally see it come together. And I'm glad from the ground up that we built something truly special that will make people shoot better and have a more enjoyable shooting experience. And I do believe that will happen with these, and I'm excited to finally be able to put this out, because I feel like we've taken our time and we got it right.
Yes. Absolutely. Well, brother, I appreciate you joining me here today for this. I'll let you get back to the kiddo and practice and everything else. I know it's a crazy time of year. We're getting ready to hit the new events and stuff into next year. So, but all good stuff, and I appreciate your partnership and look forward to great things with the new Recurve Plus strings.
Yep, I'm excited, and thank you for having me on this project, and thank you for being patient with my mini ask.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.